stories. They are connected. But I'll begin with about this time of the year, which seemed to be the first extraordinary day of spring. Reuben Rainey, our last speaker, asked me to join with Schaefer Summers on a project of working on integrated medicine out in Westover, of course, site for both the University of Virginia medical series of disciplines and Tibetan medicine, meditative practices. The first gentleman I met out there was a person whose first name was Johnson. He's a member of our community here in Charlottesville. And I came over, because I had learned to be polite, to shake his hand. And he came over with my hand was there and put his fingers to take my pulse over here. And I said, pretty good, engaged. I remembered that, and then the idea of slowing it down, pausing, taking one's pulse, step by step, seeing the world, the immediate here and now, and then long, long ago and far, far away, as we heard in the morning on the Sanskrit text interpretations, etc., scholarship on that, is what I am interested in, and I believe is what the compassionate role, if I could use that term, of architecture to serve this way of being in the world, helping to be in the world with others. So it's just not alone. So the touching of one's hand or taking one's pulse is an immediate small thing. My stories will be rather modest in images and maybe case studies through here. By framing, I mean it's very often we are in some place alone, distressed, whatever it might be, and if we only had a window, we could see that there was actually an ongoing world there, and we may actually, if we spend some time, which is a key word, in a place that we see that clouds come and go, that maybe even seasons come and go, that the daylight from sunrise to sunset actually makes a big difference because we are alive by perceiving those things. So, let me jump into this first image. The last image we saw by Kim right before lunch was a thanks, but it had a vessel of water, drops coming on down, hitting that flat plane of water, which is reflective, and making something in the image of itself, those concentric circles around there. It's pretty, and all the many of the Veda and epilepsy images involve water as well. Genesis in Western terms begins in darkness, in night actually. In fact, I'm going to turn off the light shortly, and get us back into the second of the Buddha, three-part Buddha's operations through the night. But the issue of water is one of the themes that help to define our relationship with the world from birth, obviously, on renewal, refreshing, that key word that was used today. But also the issue that Phoebe brought up of enclosure, so I say, first might be a reaction to architecture that it separates us from the outside world with a wall. It connects us to the outside of the world through a window. And I think the idea of breath and pulse and heartbeat and all that are liquid, fluid conditions that sustain us through the finiteness of walls and the magic perhaps of windows through here. But when I think of water, which could be a vast sea, or in my case the Hudson River or our own Rivanna River there, I think how magical a little bit of water can be on that woman who's using her wrist. So around here, a wrist is an amazing geometrical kind of tool. A wrist and a piece of cloth with a little bit of dampness on it to clean every day the teak wood in this Pondicherry ashram in Gokande, or in Pondicherry called Gokande to there. The idea that architecture could require maintenance is a good thing because we maintain that which our ancestors built, and we go on it with reverence because we're using a little bit of water in that context. At the same time, in the research Phoebe and I are doing in India with our students, where we're looking at the emerging megacities, huge cities, as well as the enduring village, we look at water at other scales. In this case, it's people with others taking a bath in the Ganga River through there. And I actually appreciate very much, though I did not know it was typical, it looked as if this woman, usually there are men on one side and women on the other, but this woman is using her hand to whether help bathe or scoop water with somebody that hopefully She knows it there. So it's that same wrist, that hand, the helping of, whether it be her father or something like that, through there is actually engaging the water and the world perhaps in a social condition. I show this, it's an American Indian. I know we're talking about India, but Columbus was looking for India anyway. And it's the sensibility of this individual in compassion with the world. He has claws around his neck, bear claws that actually has a sensibility for digging deep in the ground, but he also has feathers up in his hair for birds. So why can't we, in this world, be both composite, if not multiple conditions of those who can deal with the earth and the depths of the earth at the same time as the spirits to fly? They could be in the same kind of personality. The academical village itself, with its red brick walls, which come actually from the ground of Madison Ball, as well as the now white painted columns, which were just painted white in 1895, but had been Rivanna River sand color for 70 years before. Those two languages of a forest of columns and a bunch of caves are what this individual at home with the world, I think, might evoke in this image of that. So I know it's an American Indian, but my whole position in teaching and in architecture is to make the bridge or the connective tissue, it almost sounds medical, but the connective tissues between one world and another, of ideas that are here and intense and immediate and self-evident in those that are mythical and come from a world that still seems to endure far, far away. That's the academical village. Just something about its form, it's derived from the human form. One head, arms with 5 digits each, 2 hands, 5 digits, there are 5 pavilions on either side. That was the original scheme. It was meant to be a square. It got compressed with the East Range and the West Range added as all streets. And for you to know that this architectural project done about 1814 to 1826 was developed and conceived in reimagining the body of our nation from being a colonial collection of 13 colonies along the Atlantic to, through Lewis and Clark's explorations, the Louisiana Purchase, to a nation that went from the Atlantic to the Pacific. So to make a long story short, in using architecture as an idea to locate us in the world politically, geographically, that's the East Range, it stands for the Appalachians. That's for the West Range, which stands for the Rocky Mountains. The great lawn in between stood for the vast open plains of the Dakotas and Iowa, etc., or midsection that was drained by the Missouri and the Mississippi rivers. And it is open to the south and the west, meaning this country was going from the Atlantic to the Pacific as a continental nation through there. So you can use architecture both to represent the human body, head and hands, and fingers, 10 digits, through there, to also evoke an idea of a space, evoking the idea of we are part of a larger whole. Not only does it have a lawn for vast gatherings of 20,000 people at graduation, etc., but it also has 10 gardens through there, each of a different character, at home with man and beast over there, and exotic plants where the, and trees, but where the lawn itself, the trees that are there are local to the North American condition of the Piedmont through there. And so it deals with the local here and now, it deals with the exotic at the same time. It deals with the Appalachians and the Rockies. It deals with the geomorphology of an idea of a continental nation. This is beginning to be the meditative part. Okay. This is a 1592 painting by Caravaggio of Narcissus. He's on a piece of land, there's a body of water down there. For years I would teach it by saying, look, you can see where the physics and energy comes down to the hand, clearly on the land, and the other side is ambiguous. Is it touching the bottom of that sandy pond, or is it just looking for a fish? The body is twisted, one knee fleshy and bone, the other covered by the leather pantaloons, I guess, for whether they are. And I used to say, and he's looking at his reflection here. Well, and what happens is that it's not even the reflection, it's an older person, it's the artist himself. So it could be said it's a temporal agenda of youth and middle age, or you could say it's a temporal agenda of one person looking and being depicted by another, and what you see is the other person looking back. So being at home or oriented in the world with others seems to be crucial in this meditative kind of condition there. very quickly. Uh, uh, I used to say I called New York for the first 18 years my home, and it was clearly defined Manhattan Island, where I grew up by these huge rivers, one to the west, the Hudson, the other one to the east. It was, and with a park, I suppose, in between there. But this world where it was easy for a 6-year-old to run away from home, which I used to do, as soon as I could count up from 100 down to 0, because the streets were numbered like that, and the avenues even had numbers as well. So I was in a world of a numerical coding, and as long as I stuck to it, I could try to see how far I could run away. So there's an issue of a wall that's not a limit, but a river and a water that defined it there. I was on an island clearly marked out by a surveyor through there. I actually didn't leave it until I was about 17. So my first 17 years was just on that territory. But I had a chance at the age of 23, after I had finished my undergraduate and graduate education in the middle of New Jersey, to go off to the Peace Corps in Peru. It's an old photograph, older than maybe the time I was there. But it had a glacial filled river coming through it, because the snow would melt. It's 8,000 feet up. It's 50 miles in from the Pacific Ocean. It was Arequipa, Peru, a city surrounded by 3 volcanoes. And the snow would melt almost to the top during the day, and that would form the waters of the rivers. And then at night, it would snow on it again. And so this is the high desert, 8,000 feet up, and an icy river flowed through it. And the Incas, before the Spanish, had a very sophisticated canal system there. They built terraces through there, and you could see there was snow in the other one halfway down. This must be by 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It melts off rapidly. You can get 4 crops of alfalfa a year. All the buildings. This is the second of it, Chachani. The other one was Misty through there. An extraordinary landscape of extreme dryness, but you could always see where the water came from. If the Hudson River and the East River were ever present in their liquid state, so I could see where life-giving water came up every day on this second of the set. And the volcanic mountains were made out of volcanic stone, obviously full of air, and they built the entire city red and white, just like the Indian red and white dialogue that goes on between Hindu and Mughal architecture, but of thick walls. And what I learned of their ever-present sunshine, which I was educated to make prismatic architecture by probably Scandinavians. When I got to Peru, you actually appreciated shade and shadow. The architecture was made by its opposite, the opposite of consistency of the sun. So there were no longer transparent walls to let light on in, but actually thick walls, which were extremely lightweight to resist earthquakes, but also to make great vessels of shadow. And here, a little bit of water comes dripping off that fountain. But we get to India, and in Udaipur, one of the Havelis, become into, in my mind, what is a similar thing. The well in the middle of this courtyard, and there's several raised courtyards in here, where the larger community could gather, as then they separated out men and women with various raised terraces and courtyards there. It is a place of wallness, of shadows, of shade. A little bit of water goes a long way, even though they have a huge man-made lake just 30 feet away. One of the key images, and where I started this, is I thought we as architects should offer the world the possibilities of fairly rich frameworks for our appreciation of where we are inside and outside. So this painting by Matisse involves a view, a palm tree on the Mediterranean, the color of water, the color of a palm tree, a shutter kicks out, you see light view, the space is extended here, you could say, and the casement window pulls on in here, and so I can look out 3 feet, I can look in about a couple of feet through here. It's got a curtain and a piece of glass that's reflective of what there, but the space of the window is 3 feet out and 2 feet here. Right beside it is the other part of that window, and I'll tell a story about that, but with a shutter. And so light is reduced down to the prismatic whiteness of light against the darkness of shade over there. So it's a remarkable window in my mind, because you could touch, there was a question about, is place important for meditation, being well with the world, and issues of noise were brought up, and its counterpart of silence. I would say silence and noise and all of the things in between is what architecture tries to mediate, so we can all meditate on where we are, and that's a good window in my mind. Okay. very quickly. I would show how maybe Americans at the time of Thomas Jefferson working on the academical village tried to meditate to understand where they were between this vast country of Arcadia, of full nature in all its forces, and the growing urbanization of this new country as it spread on up. It might be light. Maybe I'll shove you into darkness for a minute. Good. There's a mountain, there's the sky, the strength of nature. The mountain over here, there's a little plateau with teepees over there. There's a hunter bow and arrow running after a deer. It was a savage state, it was called, and the waters were big and they were rough and splashed around, and the sky was storming away as well. Few millennia later, like at Stonehenge, people begin to clear the land. That's a pastoral setting. That old farmer is now, or that young farmer is now, metaphorically anyway, an old man. He's watching his pet dog and his granddaughter tend the sheep, etc. So here you can still see the mountain. The sky is no longer threatening. The waters are somewhat under control. Then time goes on. Same mountain is there, but the world's been quarried, and now we build a city. We build a city celebrating the capacity of human beings. Where there had been a forest, now there's a forest of pillars through here. Seems like the end of the story, but they go on and it self-destructs. Through there, the bridges fall on down, and the very last image is desolation. It's either a start of something new or the complete collapse of the condition where moss and other things begin to eat away at the marble columns, etc., and a return. But somewhat, if there was the sun shining before, there may only be a moon at this thing. The place is in desolation without sun. Is it an end or a rebirth, which is part of the discussion? But 1826, Thomas Cole and his country was during the course of the empire, these things, just as the time that Jefferson was finishing up the academical village. There's something about that sequence in here that I think touches on maybe a local purpose of where we are in this world between birth and rebirth, and death and eschatology, which I think is a notion that involves that we don't ever come to an end, but we have an imaginative capacity to build once again. Okay, and then I have a little story to tell on this New Yorker cover. It might be towards the end of what I show. But it was the first thought that I had why the importance of being in the world, and particularly where we began with issues of death and dying, might affect this. In 1969, on my return from Peace Corps, Peru, I immediately went to visit my father on the 14th floor of a New York hospital. This room had two windows next to one another, one facing a blank courtyard wall 40 feet away, while the other had a clear, boundless view of the Hudson River and the New Jersey Palisades, miles in the distance. I volunteered, proving that I had learned something by being away. I volunteered the observation one could see the sun just then setting over the Hudson to the west. My father, on the other hand, who was rather wonderful, but I remember his first remark, scolded me for my singular optimism as I pointed that I had arrived just in time for the sun to set. Indeed, he said, the more appreciated window was the modest other one, the one looking out to the masonry wall, the same one that in the long darkness of night slowly became illuminated by the reflected light of sunrise. That was the very wall blocking the river view only 40 feet away. That blank yet slowly illuminated wall was more important to him after a long night of darkness than the spectacular yet familiar view of the Hudson at the end of the day. Therefore, I should say we grew up with lots of views of the Hudson River. Thereafter, I have asked my students often to envision one good room with one good window. If I retain a smile at the end of 44 years of teaching, it is that they often offer up more than one. They offer up two, one for sunrise and one for sunset. Why contemplate here and now the regenerative powers of water close at home, the space between sunrise and sunset, a wall, a window, and the measures of one's heartbeat, footsteps syncopating pulse and pause. We all thrive when ensnared with one gauge, but I like the word ensnared as if we're on a hunt for life. We all thrive when ensnared with the connective tissues recounted in a long day's journey into night, a contemplative pause is the spatial setting between here and there. Rebecca Solness, a contemporary writer in San Francisco, recommends a field guide for getting lost as a tonic and a journey for finding oneself along the way. And I'll show you, when's my time up? Good, then I'll fill it up. Norman Rockwell, you know, if it's a father and a son at George Washington and a Boy Scout. But one is leading on a sword and the other one has a walking street, and they're going to go on a journey of over 200 years, I suppose, to discover where they are or beginning to establish a nationhood. Another Norman Rockwell, which I show to my students in Architecture 101, I say this Thanksgiving feast is the social setting of the lawn. And the turkey is the rotunda. And if you want to count pavilions, you got grandma, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over there. So there's the 10 pavilions, the bounty of the American feast, and the rotunda. I try to make architecture accessible. Makes you wonder, what did your grandpa, I think I counted. It's another window that I had at the American Academy Rome in the year 2000. I was so discouraged that it was north-facing, like light would never enter into it. And it went down and said, almost, but didn't dare to do it. I couldn't have any other room. And they said, architects always get this room. You go there when you think you know everything and you realize you don't know anything at all. But I flew it open in the morning, and I should say that's looking north. If that's north, late in the afternoon, this would light up. Morning light would come from way up here and hit the edge of this tree. And speaking of sound or noise or what, early in the morning when the light hit the tree, the birds began to sing. And so I had a tree kind of blocking a view. And I wanted to see a view of Rome. And all I had was a tree and a dark wall over there. But it ended up being a wonderful place between the urbanism and congestion and millennia of Rome and those birds who knew how to sing when the light hit in the morning. Late in the afternoon, when I was hardly there, it would hit back on this wall which turned salmon pink and was so warm in a reticence against the green cedar tree over there. All civilizations are, and cultures are indebted to the fantastic process of the natural agricultural cycle. So here, this is a Grant Woods. When tillage begins, other arts follow. The farmers, therefore, are the founders of human civilization. The ongoing processes of planting, harvesting, all those things which are so present to Jefferson the farmer and would be present, I think, in the gardens and the academical village, as well as in just daily life that's tied to seasons, night and day, and all that, and issues of rebirth are evident in all these, on one hand, getting a handle on American civilization, what you could call North American culture, perhaps, and understanding can it fit at all into larger, maybe worldwide speculations on where we are in the world. They are out there working, they come in and they have their lunch through there, and there's a number of remarkable windows. I'll just point out one because I'm going to speed along. There's a window here covered with lace. The women in the house wear aprons. This window is covered with a oilcloth shade, a partially open thing, and more modest cotton kind of. It's a filtering of light, of windows. How different this is in the celebratory room, where there's a multiplicity of tiny little knots. How simple it is back here, but light can be blue and yellowish when it's high in that room and modified through there. There's a porch and a front door and a back door, and this person takes the time to lean down to wash his face to get a little bit of water, cleans his hands before he joins his compatriots. Another of these things celebrating life on this wonderful spring day like this is Arbor Day, when actually part of contemplation may be in an agricultural setting, that at a school all the kids come together and they dig a hole in the ground and they plant a tree, and if they do that every year, then they will bring another forest back to this place. So these are signs of everyday life where the idea, and I don't know if there's a little bucket there, I would hope it would be. I'm looking for where that little bucket might be. and don't see it, but there's the well. There's the other, somebody's big brother, pumping the water, using his wrist, using his hand, testing his pulse at that rhythm to bring it over there to help make with others in this world the world again. One of my favorite is this one I call Widow Carr from Carr's Hill, who is called the mystery of this place. But again, with her smock and her apron, out in an Iowa landscape, she holds a plant from another place, perhaps from Santa Fe, a plant that's exotic and far, but she holds it and treasures it with her two hands over there as much as she is in the bounty of the American agricultural landscape. And very quickly, we looked at India's emerging megacities and the daily and ancient life of bathing and doing laundry at its huge ghats. These are not urban walls, they're the opposite, not walls like Carcassonne that separates the outside from the inside, but actually helps you to step down on human scale into the water. But at the villages, which were remarkable to us, for thousands of years they have been retaining water from the monsoons in small but appropriate tanks to serve small villages of 4,000 to 5,000 people in there. We got to Prague here just the day they began to cleaning it. It was full of fish. That evening where we stayed, we had fish, and the next day we had fish, and the next day we had fish. And Kauskas in Delhi, this extraordinary, in the middle of the city, but it used to be a freestanding village with a vast forest, which helps the climatic condition, but also a vast tank through there. And other places in Prague were exquisite tanks at the scale of an extended family through there. And water, again, I like the contrast of the red and white motorcyclist and the red and white woman carrying clay pots and these other pots where water is at all these scales. I'm trying to give a sense. And a generosity, they are often under trees, and perfect and imperfect strangers can come by and refresh themselves and go on. Contrast at Patty Four Secret, I love that little dog. It's like a space finds itself in here in this gigantic territory of dryness and whiteness and congregation, but even man and beast can survive. That's obviously Taj Mahal, that water used to reflect that which was built above and to bring the sky down to the ground. Water in Oroville near Pondicherry, experimental colony since the 1960s of taking used water, gray water actually, from the outhouses and going through systems that they actually could be cleansed and reused for many purposes through there. So we saw water from the Taj Mahal to tiny villages to ghats and stepwells and all that, and even people using pretty mechanical terms to get to it. Even this ancient well that would have a water buffalo, bring it on and coming to the end of it now. This is a Diebenkorn painting of Ocean Park series. It's a room with two windows, very much what my father might have had. One window facing a wall 40 feet away that got morning light bouncing in. The other one, endless view, boundless view over there. The very windows do matter, I guess. It's the one thing we do very well if we want, once we're inside someplace, to have the connection of an endurance and an ongoing world on the outside. That happened to be in this room, two chairs over here for two people, not one alone, but two people talking to one another, or at least taking your pulse, which might be important. And two, that's an abstraction of the same painter, of the same space, but within that window, whether you think this is a curtain or quality of light, or suddenly you see the blue of the sky or the edge of the ocean and tides coming on it, it's a beginning to say that windows can have, you could live in a window. It has a multivalent kind of condition. And finally, one of my students before she came here had from Alabama, Polly Smith, did these 4 paintings making, as it was put together, one window to frame her favorite place in the world, through a hammock or a fishing net, however you want to do it, a horizon line, the sky, something to contain her body, something to look at up. She extracted that light into this during a great storm where there was a moon and light came down and it was reflected on the bottom and on the top. So she's been doing, before she came here, studies of that space of her childhood. I'm going to skip that and just show this is the very end. I'm interested in the medical dimensions of this. I'm obviously interested in the meditative. This is Jacques-Louis David's 1792 Death of Marat. He was stabbed by his girlfriend, but he had another writing instrument, the pen. So he left a kind of accountability of his life, and he also existed within the phenomenal extremes of living and dying. It's abstract in so many ways. It is figural. On the other, it's a simple painting in black, like the second night of Buddha, and I offer you now Ruben Rennie's third project, The Garden, which begins the world again, no doubt. Okay.